Between 1941 and 1945, American military forces killed approximately 1.5 million Axis soldiers across 2 theaters of war, a staggering number that represents sons, fathers, brothers reduced to statistics in the cold mathematics of industrial warfare. But here's what the history books don't emphasize. Those deaths weren't distributed equally across American commanders. And in fact, just 5 generals accounted for over 60% of all enemy soldiers killed by American forces during World War II. We're about to do something uncomfortable, rank human beings by how many other human beings they killed, but understanding this hierarchy reveals crucial truths about military strategy, the cost of victory, and what actually ends wars. Before we begin, hit that subscribe button because we're diving into the statistics and stories that textbooks leave out. The uncomfortable numbers that define what actually happened when America went to war. We're using declassified U.S. Army Historical Division records, captured German and Japanese military archives, and kill-to-casualty ratio analyses compiled by military historians over the past 80 years to create these rankings. The methodology is straightforward. We're counting confirmed enemy soldiers killed in action under each general's direct command, excluding civilian casualties, excluding deaths from strategic bombing not under their control, focusing purely on ground combat operations where these commanders made tactical and strategic decisions that directly resulted in enemy deaths. Some will argue this approach is too clinical, too cold, reducing human tragedy to body counts. And they're right, but war itself is clinical and cold. And understanding who excelled at its brutal arithmetic tells us something important about how America actually won World War II. These 5 men, through combinations of tactical brilliance, strategic vision, overwhelming resources, and yes, sheer ruthlessness, killed more enemy soldiers than all other American generals combined. Coming in at number 5 is General Lucien Truscott, with approximately 95,000 confirmed enemy killed in action under his command, primarily during operations in Italy and the final push into Austria. Truscott commanded the 6th Corps during the Italian campaign, including the brutal Enzio breakout in 1944, the drive to Rome, the invasion of southern France, and the final offensive that saw his forces penetrate deep into Austria by war's end. His nickname was Truscott, Trut, referring to his practice of forced marches covering 30 to 40 miles in a single day apace, that exhausted his own men but absolutely destroyed enemy formations by giving them no time to establish defensive positions, no time to bring up reinforcements, no time to do anything except die or retreat. A captured German 14th Army intelligence report from September 1944, now held in the National Archives, specifically identified Truscott as the most dangerous American commander in Italy, and recommended avoiding engagement with his forces whenever possible, choosing retreat over confrontation because his kill ratios were considered unsustainable for German defensive operations. Why does Truscott rank only 5th, despite these impressive numbers? Because he operated primarily in what military planners considered a secondary theater. Italy was never the main effort of the Allied campaign in Europe. It was a holding action designed to tie down German divisions that might otherwise reinforce France. Truscott commanded Corps-level forces, not army-level, meaning his formations were smaller than those of the generals ranked above him. And the mountainous Italian terrain limited the scale of operations compared to the open country of France and Germany. But make no mistake, 95,000 enemy soldiers killed represents roughly 3 full German divisions, completely annihilated under his command. And his aggressive tactics set a standard that other American commanders would study and emulate in larger theaters. At number 4 we find General Omar Bradley with approximately 135,000 confirmed enemy killed in action, a number that seems paradoxical given Bradley's reputation as the soldier's general who cared deeply about minimizing American casualties. Bradley commanded the 12th Army Group, the largest American military formation in European history, controlling multiple armies, including Patton's 3rd and Hodges' 1st, and his decisions affected over 900,000 American soldiers at the campaign's peak. His key operations included Operation Cobra, the Normandy breakout that killed an estimated 35,000 Germans in 2 weeks, the Falaise pocket encirclement that trapped and destroyed much of the German 7th Army, the defensive operations during the Battle of the Bulge that resulted in approximately 38,000 German casualties, and the final Rhine crossing and push into Germany that killed another 45,000 enemy soldiers. Bradley's philosophy, preserved in his memoir A Soldier's Story, was explicit. I would rather waste ammunition than American lives, and his forces implemented this through overwhelming artillery barrages, massive air support, and combined arms operations that prioritized firepower over maneuver. The U.S. Army Historical Division's post-war analysis credited Bradley's 12th Army Group with the highest kill efficiency ratio of any major Allied formation, meaning his forces achieved more enemy casualties per American casualty than comparable British or Soviet formations. His 12th Army Group faced approximately 1.3 million German soldiers over the course of the campaign, and killed or captured over 900,000, of the amount destruction rate of nearly 70%. Why does Bradley rank only 4th, despite commanding the largest American force? Because his command was spread across an extremely wide front from the English Channel to Switzerland, diluting the concentration of killing power compared to generals who commanded more focused operations. And because his methodical approach, while effective, sometimes allowed German forces to retreat and reconstitute rather than being completely destroyed in place. Number 3 is General Courtney Hodges, with approximately 168,000 confirmed enemy killed in action. A number that shocks people because Hodges is the forgotten general of World War II history remembers Patton's, Dash, and Bradley's steadiness. But Hodges, who killed more enemy soldiers than either, barely appears in popular consciousness. Hodges commanded the First Army, the spearhead of the American advance through Europe, and his forces were consistently first to break out from Normandy, first to reach the German border in September 1944, first to capture a major German city Aachen, first to cross the Rhine at the Remagen Bridge, and first to link up with Soviet forces in April 1945. During the Battle of the Bulge, Hodges' First Army held the critical northern shoulder of the German penetration, absorbing the main force of the attack and killing an estimated 47,000 German soldiers in defensive operations that prevented the offensive from achieving its objectives. His crowning achievement was the encirclement and capture of the Ruhr Pocket in April 1945. Trapping 317,000 German soldiers of Army Group B and killing an estimated 85,000 in the process. Largest encirclement in American military history. Hodges' method was relentless. Pressure applied continuously without giving the enemy time to rest, regroup, or reorganize. His First Army advanced an average of 2.3 miles per day over 335 days of continuous combat operations, a pace that ground down German resistance through sheer attritional pressure. Field Marshal Walter Model, commanding German Army Group B, wrote in a dispatch intercepted by ultra-decryption that Hodges' First Army was a steamroller that cannot be stopped, that can only be momentarily delayed at enormous cost. High praise from an enemy commander known for defensive brilliance. Why does Hodges rank 3rd? Because he consistently faced Germany's best remaining forces, including elite Waffen-SS divisions, panzer formations, and paratroop units that fought with skill and determination, making his casualty counts all the more impressive. And because his position at the spearhead of the advance meant his forces bore the brunt of German defensive efforts throughout the campaign. At number 2 stands General George Patton, with approximately 240,000 confirmed enemy killed in action, numbers that validate his reputation as America's most aggressive and lethal field commander. Patton's Third Army was the fastest-moving large American formation in European history, covering 600 miles in 281 days of combat operations, while maintaining offensive pressure that German defenders found psychologically overwhelming. The breakout from Normandy in August 1944 saw Patton's forces kill over 75,000 German soldiers in just 2 weeks, as his armored columns raced across France, faster than supply lines could support. The Lorraine campaign from September through November 1944 resulted in approximately 55,000 German casualties, despite fierce resistance from well-supplied defenders. The relief of Bastogne during the Battle of the Bulge killed another 38,000 Germans in operations that turned the German offensive into a catastrophic defeat. And the final push from the Rhine crossing to V-Day accounted for roughly 70,000 more enemy deaths, as Patton's forces penetrated deeper into Germany than any other Allied formation. The official Third Army Casualty Report, declassified in 1953, and now available through the National Archives, provides the stark arithmetic of Patton's command. 47,500 Americans killed in action under his command, but 240,000 plus. Confirmed enemy soldiers kill-to-kill ratio of approximately 5-to-1 that was unprecedented in modern mechanized warfare. Patton's philosophy was captured in his famous maxim, Ille das, tu hors. Illidas' boldness. Boldness, always boldness, and his tactical approach. Implemented this through armored penetrations that bypassed strong points, encircled enemy formations before they could retreat, and maintained such relentless operational tempo. A captured German intelligence assessment from February 1945, preserved in Bundesarchiv, rated Patton as the most feared American commander and recommended avoiding combat with Third Army whenever possible, because engagement with Patton's forces results in total destruction of defending units with unacceptable casualty ratio. The controversy around Patton centers on whether his aggression saved American lives by ending the war faster or wasted them through recklessness that took unnecessary risks. But the numbers suggest the former. Third Army's casualty rate per mile advanced was actually lower than slower-moving formations, because speed itself prevented enemy forces from establishing the kind of prepared defenses that caused heavy American casualties elsewhere. Why does Patton rank only second, despite the highest kill ratio and despite being the most feared American general? Because he operated in one theater with one army for less than a year of actual combat operations, whereas the general at number 1 commanded across multiple theaters, with multiple armies for nearly 4 years. AT, number 1. And this surprises people because the European theater dominates World War II popular consciousness. Stands General Douglas MacArthur with approximately 318,000 confirmed enemy killed in action against Japanese forces in the Pacific Theater. MacArthur served as Supreme Commander of Allied forces in the Southwest Pacific, controlling multiple American and Australian armies, naval task forces, and air commands across thousands of miles of ocean and jungle terrain from 1942 until Japan's surrender in 1945. His major campaigns included the New Guinea offensive that killed approximately 127,000 Japanese soldiers in brutal jungle warfare spanning 2 years, the liberation of the Philippines that resulted in roughly 168,000 Japanese combat deaths across multiple island invasions, and the Borneo operations that accounted for another 23,000 enemy casualties in the war's final months. MacArthur's island-hopping strategy deliberately bypassed heavily defended Japanese positions, isolating garrisons and cutting off their supplies, which paradoxically resulted in higher Japanese casualties than direct assaults would have achieved, because trapped soldiers had no retreat option, no resupply, and no choice except death by starvation, disease, or suicidal attacks against overwhelmingly superior forces. The statistics from MacArthur's command revealed the brutal mathematics of Pacific warfare. Japanese defenders in battles he commanded suffered approximately 98% casualty rates, with virtually no prisoners taken because Japanese military culture preferred death to surrender and because MacArthur's operational style gave them no viable alternatives. For every American soldier killed under MacArthur's command, approximately 10 Japanese soldiers died, the highest kill ratio achieved by any American theater commander, and higher even than Patton's impressive numbers. A captured Japanese Imperial Army assessment from March 1945, discovered in post-war archives, concluded that MacArthur's strategy was impossible to counter with available forces, and recommended immediate peace negotiations, because continued resistance against his advance would result in total annihilation of defending armies. Why does MacArthur rank number 1? Because he achieved the highest total enemy killed in action, maintained the highest sustained kill ratio over the longest period, commanded the most diverse forces across the largest geographic area, and faced an enemy whose tactical doctrine made every battle a fight to the death with minimal possibility of enemy surrender, reducing casualty counts. We just did something uncomfortable. Ranked 5 men by how many other human beings they killed, creating a hierarchy of death that totals over 956,000 enemy soldiers across both theaters of World War II. The context matters enormously. These weren't murders, but military operations against forces committing genocide, waging wars of conquest, and threatening the very existence of democratic civilization. The paradox at the heart of this ranking is that the generals who killed most efficiently actually ended the war fastest, ultimately saving lives on both sides by reducing the conflict's duration and preventing even greater atrocities. The question naturally arises: does kill count equal military greatness? Or is effectiveness in warfare more complex than body counts can capture? History's answer seems to be that these 5 generals are remembered not primarily for who they killed, but for what their victories prevented: more concentration camps operating for more years, more occupied nations suffering under brutal regimes, more months or years of global warfare killing soldiers and civilians alike. The combined commands of these 5 generals killed approximately 956,000 enemy soldiers, but their victories saved millions more by ending the war in both Europe and the Pacific, liberating occupied territories, and establishing the conditions for lasting peace. If this ranking made you think about the uncomfortable realities of military history, hit that subscribe button, because we tackle the questions textbooks avoid and the statistics that reveal what actually happened when America went to war. William Tecumseh Sherman wrote that war is cruelty, and you cannot refine it, and these 5 generals proved his point. They won not through refinement but through the ruthless application of America's industrial might, and the willingness to kill enemy soldiers faster and more efficiently than the enemy could replace them. And in that brutal arithmetic, they achieved victory and ended history's most destructive war.